So off from the Chinese communist superpower and right into the hotbed of Qatar there. And both, I have not seen the questions asked, and I haven't seen it from the press, whether they asked about Brookfield's conflict of interest or Carney's conflict of interest with Brookfield and his Chinese deals, including that loan that he took from the Bank of China. But now he's landing in Qatar, and there's Brookfield having tons of corporate interests as well there. It seems to have, not traveled far from where Brookfield goes. And he arrived there in Qatar to a big, big fanfare, big welcome in Qatar there. And this is what they got out of it. And this is, it's touted as a bigger deal, but I don't really read anything. Bilateral trade and investment through the establishment of a joint Canada-Qatar Commission means nothing. Information technology expanding investment opportunities means nothing. Defense and security with Qatar, defense and security. That's a good place to do defense and security. Launching negotiations for a framework. Whoa, where are you going? Where are you going there? And a new double taxation agreement. Again, add in expand air service. This is the only one that you can put your finger on. Expand air service between the two countries, between Canada, Qatar Air Transport Agreement. And open an office in Qatar, in Doha. Other than that, it's just another one of those MOUs that says we're going to do something, perhaps.
But it might mean something. It might not. It might.
Oh, you're back
Can you hear
now.
me?
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear you.
The thing is, with this vague language, it might mean something and it might not mean anything. And that, as usual, it seems, is what Mr. Carney wants, because then he can kind of do whatever he wishes and nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going on. So people are kind of left to talk about, the Qatar's human rights record or something like that. They're talking around it because they don't know what it actually signifies. They don't know what this deal really is. And it could be major, but it looks like, the emphasis was on Qatari investment in Canadian energy in particular, which Carney said would supercharge Canada's energy infrastructure. Who knows what he means? Because again, he always hedges, doesn't he? He always says clean and conventional energy. So that could mean Qatar's going to come in and get some unfathomably generous price on like wind power or solar or something like that. So which is basically taxpayers giving money to Qatar for nothing, as we've seen with the British who are stupidly pursuing that route. So this could mean very bad things, or on the other hand, it could mean that Qatar's like thinking about getting in big on oil infrastructure. We just don't know. We have no idea, as usual, from this Prime Minister and this party that he represents, which but the both of them really dislike transparency, don't they? Let's not beat around the bush.
Qatar, let's play this clip here on Qatar here.
Ever visit by a sitting Canadian Prime Minister to Qatar. It marks a new era for our relationship, one in which we move from being close friends to strategic partners. In an increasingly dangerous and divided world, Qatar is an effective, expansive, and important force for peace. Now, as I think we all know, the global landscape is changing rapidly, leaving businesses and workers in a state of uncertainty. These changes are also undermining the effectiveness of our multilateral institutions on which middle powers like Canada and Qatar have historically relied. And in response, Canada is focused on what we can control, securing new trade and investment partnerships, so we're not reliant on a single country, but are stronger and more resilient to global shocks. My colleagues and I arrived here yesterday from Beijing, where we had just secured a new trade agreement that at first blush will help unlock more than $7 billion in export markets for Canadian farmers, ranchers, fish harvesters, and agri-food workers across our country. This is the beginning also of a new strategic partnership between Canada and China, a partnership that deepens collaborations in areas such as energy, clean technology, agri-food, and financial services, a partnership that will increase trade and catalyze new investment. Tomorrow I will go to Davos, Switzerland, where I'll meet with leaders in commerce, technology, and global governance. To launch this new chapter in our relationship, I'm pleased to announce that Qatar has committed to make significant strategic investments in Canada's nation-building projects. This capital will help the projects get built faster, and supercharge our energy industries, while helping to create thousands of high-paying careers for Canadians. We're also announcing an ambitious new partnership while we deepen our ties across trade, investment, defense, and AI. After years of stalled negotiations, we're prioritizing a new investment promotion and protection agreement, which we'll finalize by this summer. This agreement will enable Canadian businesses to more easily expand their operations in and attract investment from this dynamic $290 billion economy. Following Ramadan, representatives from Qatar's Sovereign Wealth Fund will visit Canada to explore new investment opportunities. And in the coming months, a delegation of Canada's leading pension funds will visit here to do the same. We're launching negotiations on a new double taxation.
So it's going to make it friendlier for companies like Brookfield to go to Qatar for taxation. And then the one that's more worrying is like our pension funds. It seems to be brought up more and more often of accessing those pension funds, the Canadian pension funds. And they've talked about that with carbon credits, talked about that with, climate agenda. There's a lot of money in our pension funds.
Yep. Well, it's one of the few remaining sources of capital really in the country, isn't it? It's not like people in Canada have got an excess of income that they can convert into savings and capital and invest all over the place. About the only thing left is the boomers' crown jewels in the form of these pension funds. And he offered it up to the UAE as well, didn't he? A sort of rival of Qatar. I do have to I don't even know if I have to do this really. Most people probably know, but I might as well go into it because it's just low-hanging fruit. But he's talking about Qatar as responsible and peaceful and its kind of security and defense posture. I mean, that is literally the exact opposite of the truth. Qatar, bear in mind, if you weren't paying attention that year when it was in the news, Qatar's the country that was basically boycotted and had its relations cancelled with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, UAE, some other countries for several years because it was funding terrorists in the Middle East, including ISIS, allegedly ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood, all kinds of, very, very bad hombres, the worst people on the planet. Qatar was accused of giving them money, and they admitted that they were giving money, I believe, to the Muslim Brotherhood, but they denied some of the other claims. Qatar is, and that's just the least of it, like the bribery as well. Like they've come out and bribed Western officials, people all over the world, and been caught doing it. They obviously run Al Jazeera. That's their little toy, which pumps out Jew hatred every single day, hatred of the West, tries to chip away at the West's reputation and weaken the West. The idea that this is a responsible partner with like-minded views or whatever nonsense, gibberish Mark Carney came out with there, is a profound insult to the average Canadian's intelligence, I think, to the Canadian citizenry. And if he had any shame, I would implore him to be ashamed of that. But obviously, that's not an attribute Mark Carney possesses, really, is it?
Well, that's the thing, like when you look at this, the Liberals always want that high ground, and they say they are. You talked about this on Friday. They always have that moral high ground. And we just made friends with two of the biggest human rights violations, hotbeds of terrorism. And also, the bigger question that I say is, it's good that he's going on trying to make deals, but he needs to divest of Brookfield shares because the conflict of interest stuff is just, it's too it's such the big elephant in the room, and nobody asks the question, which is odd, isn't it? It's just absolutely odd. Here's the media that's traveling along, getting free sausage rolls and free stays and free flights and all this stuff. And they don't ask hey, we were just in China. You took a loan from China. You actually took a loan from Xi himself from the Bank of China. Now you're in Qatar, which Brookfield has tons of investments in. And you still have shares in this. Are we doing the Brookfield tour, or what are we doing? Where's Canada play into this? What's next? Where's Brookfield have? We gave $500 million to the European Space Agency. Brookfield, involved, which is odd that we would invest in the European Space Agency, and yet the media just absolutely quiet, absolutely quiet.